Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS Shout Out Show. Hope you're having a great day. Wednesday, we're halfway through the week. Today's episode, guess what? Guns kill. We're actually going to look at the aspect of guns in America. We're going to look at the proliferation of gun law, the NRA, and a lot of other things today. We kick off the top of the show with a sad note of the loss of Jacqueline Avant, the wife of pioneer, the Black Godfather Clarence Avant, who in her own way was a stalwart in so many things with Black Hollywood, Hollywood overall. 223, she was sadly, a victim of what is being termed as a home invasion. It's all new, brothers and sisters. But what I know is a woman who was 81 years old is no longer with us because she was killed with a gun. And just yesterday, we had a situation where we now have four young people from Oxford High School and in Oakland County, Michigan, who are not with us. We have people who are evidencing behaviors, psychoses that are leading to, brothers and sisters, loss of life, loss of freedom, just loss of security. This whole scope that we now deal with, where people are driven by fear. You'll hear terms like DGU, like defensive gun use and things like that. But defensive gun use, brothers and sisters, is not the equivocator. It's not the thing that makes this gun use palatable. There's issues of race, of course. There's issues of crime, of course. And people will try to make the case along that. But historically, what we're going to do today is break that down. The statistics are out there, brothers and sisters, that, people who buy guns to feel safe normally wind up buying more guns to feel safe. What does that mean? It means that somewhere along the line, that place where you say, I need to have this quality of life, it's not really there. So you get another gun. And in some regards, we create an enemy. We create a boogeyman that justifies us keeping all these guns. There was a time, brothers and sisters, when you had a gun, it was to hunt. A long gun was to go hunt. Deer, bison, buffalo. But before that time, there were people who ran the land who didn't have guns. And they still were able to hunt effectively and feed their families and feed their communities. And now with this proliferation of guns, brothers and sisters, there's a whole new psychology that's come forward. There's a great article called The Psychology of Guns by Pierre. I was just reading it today. And what they broke into a very, very, very clear, manifestations, that the fact that, guns now have their own psychology. And today on the Shout Out Show, I would like to talk about that psychology. So I want to give a shout out to the Avant family. I want to give a shout out to the families of people who, young students who lost their lives in Michigan. I also want to give a shout out because there's some people we won't even hear about them in the news. People are losing their lives to gun violence as we speak. So clearly, we have a full show today. And I will put it out there, brothers and sisters, that yes, I do have my own opinion. I was a victim of gun violence. I know what it is to have a gun pointed in my face. And when I say pointed in your face, they weren't trying to rob me for jokes. It's a question of I have to look at this person and I have to, for lack of a better word, postulate just how scared they are holding the gun. Because if they're very fearful, it doesn't matter what I do. Whatever's in their head, that's what they're going to follow. We're not talking about reason. We're not talking about logic. We're talking about information, emotional overload that lead people, brothers and sisters, to do crazy things with firearms. We can talk in utopian terms about a world of peace, and remember the old days where you can leave your front door open and stuff like that, and I remember those days vaguely. But This thing now about gun violence, it now is pervasive. I'm sorry. And at this point in time, yeah, call it what it is. You can argue for or against, but let's call it what it is, brothers. Guess what? Guns kill. Here on the Shout Out Show, I'm Preacher Moss. Let's get started. And we are back, brothers and sisters. So let me give a shout out, of course, to my Aunt Shirley, who's recuperating down at Duke University Cancer Center. Aunt Shirley, you know, we got duas coming your way, as well as some of my folks. You know who you are. If you have people who are trying to recuperate, we want to give them a shout. Big shout out to Kendrick Samuels. Big shout out to Lorraine Kitchen. And, of course, our beloved Miss Eleanor. We hope that you are doing well, too. Okay, brothers and sisters, I want to go ahead and get started. And let me say this because I realize there's some people who come to the Shout Out Show for the first time. I have been remiss. I have been very comfortable in introducing the people that come on the show all the time. If you're on the show for the first time, hey, guess what? Welcome. You made it. You are a star. I'm the host of the Shout Out Show. This is the platform. You know what? But you, the people, are the ones that make the show. That's real talk. That's number one. Number two, you know, get your stripes. Get into that comment section. Let us know who you are. Get your shout outs. This is a family show, and we are about family things. This is open discussion. So if you have something to say, put in that comment section. Don't be afraid. The only opinion that we don't respect is one we don't know. There you go. So that's number one. And I guess it's number two. So number three is just welcome. You know, I haven't said it to a while. People come on the show. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's go ahead and get to our Shout Out Show family, Shout Out Show soldiers really quick. We want to give a shout out to Sister Reed. Reed, we appreciate you. As always, peace and blessings to you, your family. Of course, Derek, Juwan. Thank you so much for being a long-term supporter of the Shout Out Show. We appreciate you. Next up, my main man, Altaf Rashid, I call him Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, the first and only Canadian ambassador to the show. Altaf, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for supporting us. Big props to you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Much love. Thank you, Altaf. Next up, what's going on, E? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I call him E, but his name is Eric Carter here on the Shout Out Show. Eric, thank you so much for making yourself available for our platform. We appreciate you and your support. Again, brother, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. Next up, Bilal Salahuddin representing. What's going on, brother? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're watching you from the Nashville airport. Boy, I appreciate. I haven't been in the Nashville airport in a long time, man. I like airports basically where you can get sweet tea, but I'm not gonna say anything like that. Thank you so much. I'm assuming you and Sister Sonia are flying someplace. Shout out. There you go. I'm back. There you go. Wa alaikum assalam, Sister Sonia. I'm sorry, Sister Sonia, Salahuddin, Dalton. I've just been calling you Salahuddin. I got to throw the Dalton in there. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. This is your home, Sister Sonia. Don't listen to Bilal. This is your home first and his second. Okay. Next up, we got Fight the Power Word, my main man, Elijah Salahuddin out of Houston, Texas. What's going on, E? We appreciate you coming on the show. Shout out to your wife and your family, sons and daughters. You know, man, we love you on the show. And we ought to catch up, man. You know, Elijah is the hardest working man in Masjid. Well, he's one of the hardest working men at the Masjid Warfdin Muhammad, 3rd Ward, Houston. Thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. Much love. Next up, we got my little brother, Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT. JT, thank you so much for coming on the show. And feel free to jump in on this conversation, JT, because I know I'm probably going to say some things that are not copacetic for some people, and it's okay. This is a discussion. It's not an argument. You know, I'm just putting it out there. JT, thank you so much for coming on the show. Shout out to the Thomas family. Next up. And what's a show without our consultant producer? Satana Whitfield. Satana, Thank you for coming on the show, brothers and sisters. Satana Whitfield was early on the show today. Yesterday, she was she was burning her heels getting to the show yesterday. She got in with like two seconds left. Now I'm messing with you, Sister Satana. We appreciate you working the back of the production. All right, let's get to it. Guess what? Guns kill, brothers and sisters. We have entered into a space whereby we are looking at gun violence with the aspect of redundancy. When I say redundancy, it means that we have cycles now. So an event happens, Sandy Hook happens, Parkland happens, Columbine happens, the thing in Michigan happens. I'm just talking about the loss of Sister Jacqueline Avon happening. We are in a cycle now whereby it goes from rage to sorrow to anger, to rage, to sorrow, to anger, to rage, to sorrow, to anger, whereby there's a normalization now. Now, let me start out by saying I don't have a gun. I've never been a gun guy. Probably will never be a gun guy. That's just my choice. Last time I shot a gun, I was in high school and I needed to do it to graduate. I went to military school. I had to satisfy my military science requirement. I shot the rifle, pop, pop. I graduated. Here I am now. And now my comment, brothers and sisters, is not anything judgmental about people have guns. Today, I want to talk about the psychology of guns. We now have a psychological profile of what drives people to buy guns. You know, and they don't talk about it a lot, the NRA and things like that. But a long time before the NRA, brothers and sisters, I just want you to know that the first Reconstruction deal that was set up for free blacks was contingent upon the fact that black people coming out of slavery could not have guns. Let me repeat it. Black people, free blacks coming out of slavery, coming out of the plantation fields, were restricted from having guns. They were giving access to a political process, wink, wink. But the deal was built upon the fact that they could not have guns. Why do you think that is, brothers and sisters? Let's look at the psychosis of that. It is because the people who had oppressed free black people worried that they had access to the means to turn around and oppress them. Classic case of, I am worried that you're going to do to me what I did to you. And going back to the mid-1800s, they took the guns and the accessibility of guns. Some of them couldn't even hunt, brothers and sisters. They took guns out of the hands of black people. Now, it wasn't based on the fact that black people had something that was psychologically or spiritually, emotionally wrong with them. And I've said this before, but the African American here in the United States and the people of color around the world has suffered, brothers and sisters, from white paranoia that allows them to develop laws and statutes and constitutional amendments to bear arms. But it doesn't specify, it doesn't reveal that it's built on fear. Clearly, brothers and sisters, we know this. We know that a gun in the hand has always been a losing proposition for the person on the other part of that rifle or that gun. I flash back to when I was watching Cowboys and Indians, and doggone it, I would root for the Indians. You know why? Because I knew the Indians, brothers and sisters, didn't have a shot. And somehow, some way, that actually that resonated with me, because as a young black man, watching my father and my mother and knowing the history of black life, black existence in the United States, I'm like, we're just like the Native Americans. And the killer part was you could only see them on TV in fictionalized roles. Now, what I took out of that, brothers and sisters, is that white people need guns. Hear me now, because this is where it gets tricky. White people need guns, and they need laws that allow them to have guns. Say it again. White people need guns, and they need laws that allow them to have guns. Now, people go, preacher making a blanket statement. I'm making a blanket statement about white supremacy and white male supremacy here in the United States. That route, I am being 100% correct. Let me even throw this out to you. Do you know, or here's my hypothesis, do you know why there wasn't wide-scale shooting at the January 6th insurrection? Do you know why? This is my hypothesis, and you can throw this out. The reason why there wasn't wide-scale shooting at that spot was because you had white people going to talk to white people. The fear wasn't there. You had white people going to talk to white people. So even if they had their guns, the logic was looking at another white person, I don't have that fear in my heart. I don't have that consternation in my heart. I don't have the thing that gives me the emotional trigger that I have to think about self-preservation and take the gun off my hip. Now you have legislation, crime and punishment legislation, that allows, brothers and sisters, that people can now just have a feeling, not proof, not evidence, not threats, a feeling that you can do something to me. And that feeling is so valid that I can take this gun off my hip and I can shoot you, or I can maim you, or in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, quote unquote, I can do a citizen's arrest. It wasn't a citizen's arrest, it was a murder. And even still, people still had to proliferate through the laws to get to the point where we all go, hey, guess what? Guns kill. It killed Ahmaud Arbery. Yes. It killed Ahmaud Arbery. It killed Breonna Taylor. Yes. You have people who are going to situations with folks that don't look like them. And historically, they have not had a great relationship with people that don't look like them. And you give them a firearm. Now, let's be really, really clear, brothers and sisters. The thing about Sandy Hook, the thing about the shooting in Michigan, the thing about Columbine, I'm going to tell you guys this, and you already know this, but I'm going to remind you. Again, I don't want to be redundant myself. It's the fact that every time we have one of these shootings, guess what happens? Gun sales go up. You would think it would reverse, brothers and sisters. Opposition to gun control now is the lowest it's been in a couple years, despite the fact we just had a shooting yesterday. It's the fact, brothers and sisters, that the psychology of the gun is so pervasive that people, when they see something like they saw yesterday, or Parkland and Sandy Hook, their reaction, their emotional reaction, is not compassion for the victims. It is self-preservation for myself. It gives them yet another opportunity, another reason and justification to go get a firearm, or in some case, to get another firearm. Now we can kind of ease back off of this, but I don't want people to overlook what I'm about to say. In the inner city, brothers and sisters, let's be fake. Let's be honest. There are guns in the inner city, but here's the deal. There's not a lot of legal guns in the inner city. We have illegal guns in the inner city. In fact, you have a lot of guys that are doing time in some of our favorite penal vacation spots around the country for what? Gun charges. You say, how do you get a gun charge? Or if you're a felon, you can't have a gun. Look at what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters. But meanwhile, on the other side, you have people who fight. Hear me now. You have people who fight to make sure that guns are accessible. But when people get the guns, there's a problem. The wrong people get the guns. Now, the truth of the matter is, the average gun user is a white male, and he's usually a person that's well-financed. They're talking about, $100,000 a year type of money, brothers and sisters. And so now it's interesting because the paradigm is shifted. When I say shifted, I mean that we now have a space where there's a fear economy that's attached to getting a firearm. Many of you know this, but let's make sure that I'm complete with this thing here. Back when there's a great picture of one of my heroes, Malcolm X, and he has a rifle looking out of the window. There's a very famous picture. He has a rifle looking out of the window, Now, Malcolm X, brothers and sisters, his house had just been firebombed. And he will probably tell you that black people, white people they're not responsible for that. He was defending his home. But that space, brothers and sisters, became a justification for conservatives to say, what? We need gun control. These Negroes can't have guns the way we can take the guns out. We need gun control. The same way they did it for the Black Panthers, the same way they did it for Black liberation movements. They asked and pursued gun control. The same ones that don't want it now, they wanted it then. And it's the height of hypocrisy, brothers and sisters, the absolute height of hypocrisy. You know, on another note, the idea of having a gun in your hand, brothers and sisters, I'm old school now. I'm old school. But I remember when you had a problem with somebody, you use these. I feel like Ving Rhames and Baby Boy. You use these. Oh, no, that's the wrong movie. That's John Witherspoon and Friday. You use these. But there's something interesting now, brothers and sisters, in this facade of bravado and the push, I want to say the push and the effort and the energy to be right. Now means to be right is not just to be right in a discussion or debate. We now have to, in some regards, impose our will upon you. We impose our will upon you. Back in Washington, D.C., a lot of you guys don't know that, for a long time, Washington, D.C. did not have a mayor. And what I'm about to say should make sense. I'm sorry about that. Got my phone on. Washington, D.C. didn't have a mayor. What they had was a control board of senators who figured out what Washington, D.C. black folk needed, what they didn't need. That's why D.C. is in the state now. But the police force, which didn't have black people, the police force was largely white. Not just white and from West Virginia. Now, what you think white men in West Virginia in 1950 know about black folk? Nothing. But they were given the apparatus, the authority, the okay, the rubber stamp to oppress black people in Washington, D.C. Are you saying, now preach, what does that mean? It means it wasn't just the authority, it was the legal ability to carry a firearm. This is a thing that's affected generations of black people all over the United States. That firearm. This was the great equalizer. Even when you broke a law, you know what? The gun never told back in the day. You now have forensics and bullets and things like that, but the gun never told. And even now, when a gun tells, brothers and sisters, it tells about people's intentions. You see, it is the thing that it lets people exact cruelty on other people. Not conversation, not debate, not discussion. You've never been in a debate with somebody and somebody pulls out a gun and go, you know what? I like that point, but you know what? This was I was thinking. See the gun part? You know what I was thinking? Because if somebody had a gun like this, you know what? That was a good point that you brought up. You'd be leaning and ducking. But in this case, brothers and sisters, we have a historical narrative that should not be overlooked. We have a historical narrative that should not be overlooked. Brother Brown and Ferguson should not be overlooked. Sister Breonna Taylor should not be overlooked. Brother Trayvon Martin should not be overlooked. Because it gives us that redundancy whereby if we don't get off this wheel, it's just going to keep going. We literally sit in our home going, who's next? We literally sit in our houses and state governments going, I can't wait for the other shoe to drop. Because we haven't equivocated to the fact that these are the things that hold us back. You see, the gun, brothers and sisters, allows people to have a rabid imagination about who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. Think of the narrative I just gave you about January 6th. White people attacking white people. Not white people attacking black people. White people attacking white people. And the white people in the Capitol didn't shoot back. And the protesters weren't shooting into the Capitol building. You probably think, yeah, they had the guns or something like that, but it was the fact that they felt that they were amongst their own. And being amongst their own brothers and sisters gave them pause, if you will. That even in this most insidious act, in their mind, they were civilized. They weren't barbarians. They were civilized. They had reason and protocol and things like that. All the things that people like you and myself can never have in their eyes. That they would take a pistol, open carry. I've been in spots where they have open carry. What do you need an open carry for a pistol for? What are you trying to prove? If you don't feel safe, stay in your spot. Why are you coming over here? I can't tell you how many protests I've been to, how many events I've been to, and they've been protests outside. The good old Islamophobic protests, Muslims are terrorists, and to look out across the street to see a Confederate flag and a big pot-belly guy with a bandana going, America, America, America. And when he turned this way, he had a pistol on his hip, and the police couldn't do anything about it. You know what he shouted out? It's my right. It's my right to carry a pistol. All right, we got Brother Elijah. Was the only time a Republican governor and legislature enacted restrictions on gun ownership was when Reagan was governor of California, and the Black Panthers openly carry guns. See more for that. Elijah, thank you. Thank you. He is 100% right. This is the only time. How long? This is not when Reagan was president. This is when he was governor. For those of you who didn't know he was governor, this is when he was governor. He never did it again. Thank you, Elijah. JT, it's hard to find ammunition for guns. It is now. Yeah. Well, the supply chain is jacked up too. How about that? Bilal says, during the last election period, a bullet couldn't be found in Texas. Shelves were empty. You ain't lying, brother. You know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, you went to all the places. Remember the spots you went to? What was that? Dick Sports and all those places. Walmart used to have it. Couldn't find any. If I was a guy and I could invest in bullets, brothers and sisters, I'd be rich right now. If bullets were Bitcoin for Black people, we'd own the U.S., China, and Saudi Arabia. All right. Attorney Cade says, very interesting, insightful discussion. Thank you. And I want to make sure we shout out that Miss Maxine K. Esquire is the owner and proprietor of BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. All right. So look, I guess, you got to put a bow on it, if you will. Using my bows is like I try and do forecasts, if you will. The forecast, sadly, I believe, is that we're going to have something of a monumental shift in the scope of guns. Looking at the economy, inflation, just kind of looking at stuff and putting a mosaic together. People of color will be more, they'll be bigger targets. Let me explain. People, I find, who carry guns excessively need reasons to carry guns. I said earlier, they need boogeyman. If you look at the Congressman, was it Boebert, talking to Congressman Ilhan Omar, they're using language whereby this woman is now getting death threats. So this lays out a principle that it's okay to go after Muslims. It's already happening against Muslims. It's continuing to happen against Blacks and Latinos, but it's not being covered that way. It's being covered under the auspices of good police work in some regards, exceptional data assessment and collection, if you will, prevention, if you will. When you think about it, the stand your ground rule to throw this out and add something that Brother Bilal said and Brother Elijah alluded to. The stand your ground law, brothers and sisters, upon further review, has killed more white people than it has black people. Because a gun in the home finds familiarity with people in the home. Gunshots, when people have pistols in the home, usually kill people who are in the home. We're not even talking about people that use pistols for suicide and things like that. These are the things that we're not talking about. We're still worried about the metaphorical Pookie running in and robbing a gas station. It's not that, brothers and sisters. Like I said, the facts are there. The hypothesis about DGU or defensive gun use is not there. It doesn't support the amount of guns and firearms that are out there. This is a business. Let me end on that. This is a business. And furthermore, this is a business of misinformation. So, if you're the blind, leading the blind, you don't give the blind flashlights. You give them darkness. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Again, shout out to all the gun victims that we talked about. Shout out to the Avon family. Shout out to Aunt Shirley and Brother Kendrick. And anybody out there that's lost a loved one due to gun violence. And this is off to the side. Sick and shut. I want to give a shout out to Ma'am Tyree's uncle, Johnny Boyd. We're hoping you pull it through, Brother Johnny. We're praying for you. Inshallah, we got out the wires up. Let's go ahead and get to our finish. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, www.befinancialindependent.com. Again, that's befinancialindependent.com. If you don't want to go there, call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. Operators are waiting. Okay. And we also want to give a shout out to Bayan Islamic Graduate School. You can go to Bayan Online. Again, that's Bayan Online. Check them out if you're interested in education at the doctoral level or the master's level. This is the place to be. One of the pre-med programs on the Master's of Divinity with a focus on Muslim chaplaincy. This is where you go. Your boy got his Master's in Islamic Education. It's the place to be. Make sure you check it out. And we want to give a shout out to our newest sponsor. We haven't done the commercial yet. We are going to be shooting it, inshallah, on Monday. I want to give a shout out to Convenient Urgent Care. Again, that's Convenience Urgent Care. 3 locations in Houston area, Cypress, Pasadena, and Parker Road, brothers and sisters. So listen, that's our show today. I hope I shed some light on some things. Like I said, you don't have to agree or disagree. I'm just giving you information, and hopefully it might spur a conversation, or maybe you want to go do your own research and realize what this whole thing is about. All right. Preacher Mars, shout out show. I'm going this way. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcasts at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go, because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum. Shout out.